Hello, my name is Steve Sasse. I'm the Regional Director for Latin America Data Center Hub. And we're here today with Cleber Braz, who's the VP of Business Development and Operations for Scala Data Centers. Welcome, Cleber, and thank you for being with us today.
Hello, Steve. So thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about our data center markets.
Thanks. It's an honor to have you, and I'm very excited to hear what you have to tell us and future plans for Scala. So thank you very much. So before we start, it'd be great to give people an idea of a little bit of your background, right? So where you started, how you progressed in this industry, and how that led to where you are today to head up operations and business development at Scala. So if you could give us a little bit of your background, that'd be great.
Sure. I think this is a very interesting point about Scala because the most part of us came from different sectors. We have, of course, a part of the team came from the data center market, but we have a mix, improving our DNA to serve the market. So talking about myself, I came from IT. So I was operations director of a local company here in Brazil called UOL. It's a media company, very big. And then I changed my role for business in UOL in 2015. And then I moved to IBM, and I had the opportunity to work with sales in IBM also in a infrastructure services business unit called GTS. And I spent 2.5 years there when Marcos invited me to take part of the Scala data center project. So in both companies, in UOL and IBM, I had the opportunity to work with data center, but in a different way, more as a user of data center and not as a provider of data center. Okay. So when I came to Scala, I had the opportunity to understand a little bit more about this market and explore. But the main focus is my background improves a lot my customer-centric overview. And this is not so common in this kind of industry because normally the industry has a standard to serve the market. And as part of our DNA, as I mentioned, we have the opportunity and the ability to understand a little bit better what are the concerns about the customers and how can we manage it in order to provide the best solution to them. So this is a summary of my background.
No, that's great. I mean, wasn't UOL the first data center that Scala bought, right?
Yes, exactly. So when Scala started their operations, but the Scala was launched through the acquisition of 2 data centers that at that time belonged to UOL. One in Tamboré, where we have our flagship campus, and the other one in São Paulo downtown, more focused on enterprise customers. So this is the foundation of Scala.
And it's interesting that you mentioned IBM. I think a lot of people forget the IBM brand and name, but IBM was obviously one of the first infrastructure companies in this globally, right? They have a lot of data centers around the world. Visited them. I visited their data centers in Chile and in Mexico, Argentina. So I mean, they still run a lot of data centers. They have very well built redundant data centers. So it's a name that you don't hear that much anymore, but they do. I think they were some of the pioneers of the data center industry.
For sure. I think that they took another direction in their development, but you are right. They are a reference, or they were a reference in terms of data center because they are very resilient and best-in-class data center in the world.
Yeah, agreed. So, Scala, and this kind of blows my mind a little bit. Scala was born, I think, 1 month after the pandemic started, right? So Scala was born during the pandemic, pretty much.
Yes, exactly.
4 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. So 4 years ago. Well, 4 years and a month. And then you started, you started to establish yourselves and go up against an Equinix and a Senti and Odata, who were companies that were already in the market. how big of a challenge was it to set up Scala year one, especially during the pandemic?
So it was a very big challenge because, as you mentioned, we started this company during the pandemic. Of course, through the acquisition, we hired some people that was operating the data centers, the two that I mentioned before, TB1 and SB2. But considering the expansion plan, it was a big challenge because it was needed to form a totally new team to explore the market. And at that time, it was curious because the demand that came because of the pandemic was tremendous. And we were the new entrant in the market. But considering that the most part of the colocation players was not prepared to serve this new wave of demand from cloud, it was a great opportunity to a company like us, starting basically from the scratch. So at that time, if a customer requests for 2 megawatts of capacity anywhere, it was difficult to have this capacity, not that day, but few months later, because the data center had no space to grow, there's no capacity to grow. And it was not our case because we had the Tamboré campus with a lot of space to grow, with a lot of demand coming to us. And it was the kickoff because we had the opportunity to sell one data hall to one of our customers of 2 megawatts. And considering the boom of the demand, we were able in 2021 to sell our first single tenant building. So we had the opportunity to change the trend and establish a very interesting milestone in this industry, at least in our region, delivering single tenant buildings to the customers. And it brings a lot of advantage because we can customize all the building to the customer. So there is no competition in terms of maintenance dates. There is no different standards in terms of security, access control. So we can be much more flexible in order to serve the customer. And with this project that started with 2 megawatts and moved to 9 megawatts, we established our standard. Okay, so at that time, we started retrofitting an existing building in our campus. And it was the only way to deliver on time. It was no time to demolish everything and start to building everything because there was a shortage in terms of labor in the market, a lot of complications to mobilize many workers in the same place because of the pandemic. So a lot of healthy protocols that we need to handle. And using that way, we were able to deliver 9 megawatts to the customer as a single tenant building. And it was amazing because opened a lot of windows to us with many other customers in the market. So at the same time, it was a challenge. Hire people, screen to screen, to form a culture totally in a digital way. So it was a very, very, very big challenge. But again, considering that the market was not prepared to serve this kind of demand, all these variables put Scala in a hot spot as the only vendor capable to serve the demand on time at that time. So it was a very great experience.
No, that's great. So it seems like the pandemic I mean, I know it was a challenge, but it might have helped your business, right? Because
Yeah, of course, there is no reason to celebrate the pandemic, for sure. It was a tragedy in terms of the humanity. But changed a lot the human behavior in a digital way. And companies like us was very important to serve alternatives to all the humanity to keep living, to keep doing your things, at that scenario. So helped a lot us in terms of business growth.
So that started you in Brazil. Now you're in Chile, you're in Mexico, and you started building in Colombia. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges of working in such diverse geographic and regulatory landscapes? Obviously, Brazil is Brazil. You guys are Brazil based, but what are the challenges of working in Chile, working in Mexico or Colombia? Are there challenges?
Yeah, there is some challenge. Each location has its own particularities, and I think that we took some decisions that helped a lot Scala in our journey. The first one is to start to work in advance. So we build a team for energy and real estate that made a lot of research in our region. So of course we have obvious locations to develop data centers, as you mentioned, Colombia, Chile, Brazil, Mexico. But making a lot of research in advance, we were able to understand a little bit better what is the base that we need to put on the table in order to develop our company. And we took another decision, considering the experience we had in TB3, the 9 megawatts building that I mentioned before. At that time, we made in the traditional way. So we hired some employees, we contract some partners, and we were working as a traditional player, having a general contractor managing everything. But we realized that is not a smart way to move forward. So we took the decision to build our own engineering team. So we have nowadays more than 500 engineers working in our company, allowing us to be more, how can I say, more flexible and engage with the customer to understand. And this team allow us to have a standard for our data center design. Of course, there is some specific requirements that came from each customer, the topology, N+1, N+2, the rack density, the fibers. There are some things that we need to customize for each customer, but we were able to define our standard that covers around 80% of all the design. And we were able to replicate this standard for everywhere, So making a lot of research in advance, understanding what is the challenge in terms of people, in terms of culture, in terms of regulatory points, land. We were able to understand how can we deliver our standard, our 80% of standard in each location very fast. So this was a key point helping us to develop abroad, across Latin America, considering Mexico, Colombia, Chile, and also Brazil. If you establish a comparison in terms of the permits in Chile and Colombia and Brazil, they are very different. And again, we have more than 20 people working from only for energy. So we are able to understand what is the matrix for each country, what is the plan that the government has to develop power in that location. We have the same numbers of employees working only on permits in a multi-country basis. So we have the ability to move with high level of flexibility in each location that we want to go. So finally, considering that the customer is global, so the same customer that we are helping here in Brazil is the same that are planning to develop in Mexico, in Colombia, and Chile. We had the opportunity to understand deeply what are their requirements, their technical specifications, not only for the project, but also for operations, because our intention is to provide the same experience. It doesn't matter if the customers are in Brazil or in Chile. The framework must be the same.
Yeah.
So we created as well our platform of data center. So we have our command center operating from Brazil. Of course, we have the local teams performing many of activities, but we have another layer managing everything that we are doing in any data center we have. So we are able, in this way, to deliver our standard, covering from the technical design through the operations, the same specifications. Doesn't matter where the customer is, you know.
Yeah.
So we invest a lot of time, we spend a lot of time building our foundations. And I believe that this was the key point, allowing us to expand fast through the Latin America.
Yeah, that's interesting when you mentioned that you hired a lot of internal engineers, right? I don't think many other companies have done that. They usually subcontract that work out to other companies. So that's interesting that you guys are doing that. Now, you have to keep those engineers busy, right? So you have to keep expanding.
Yes.
So saying that what are you looking at new markets? Are you looking to expand in secondary markets where you are today? So obviously Latin America is a large territory. As we've seen in the US, a lot of data centers are expanding to secondary and tertiary markets to support AI and cloud. What are the thoughts of Scala today as far as expanding to other countries or secondary or tertiary markets?
Yeah, it's a very interesting point. Again, we have in our DNA some specific skills. One of them is solving customer problems. Okay, so we have under control more than 2 million square meters. So we have land in any part of Latin America that you can imagine. We have tons of studies about the permits to build a data center, to operate a data center, the environmental aspects in many countries in our region. And when a customer came to us and talked, hey, can you help me? I need capacity, I don't know, El Salvador. But I have only a small capacity. I don't have a big plot of capacity to work with you. Can you help me on this? And our answer is yes, we can do it. And why we can do it? Because, again, using our engineers, we were able to work in a more industrialized way. So it means when we decide to deliver a data center, we have a lot of process, very, very, very mature, you know. If the customer needs to go fast for a location, we have our prefab solution. We can deliver small plots of capacity anywhere, okay, fitting all their technical requirements. If the customer needs to deliver a new market in a more smoothly ramp of capacity, we have the ability to do it, but less money at risk because we have the methodology, a construction methodology that allow us to deliver plots, small plots of capacity, following the customer ramp. So we are putting the revenue pretty close to the investment, you know. So using all these features, we are able to help the customers. Okay, so one point for a new market, I can tell you, Steve, if a customer asks right now that they need capacity in Panama, for instance, we are able to move forward. Of course, we will need to enter in an agreement. We will take under consideration not only this new piece of capacity, but the entire P&L that this customer has with us. Maybe I can take the decision to have the customer in one location, not so developed in terms of data center, but solving this kind of problem, customer will remember about Scala when they need capacity in the more obvious location. So this is one point. The other point, we have another team, our market intelligence team. listen to everything that is happening in Latin America, okay, in terms of politics, in terms of economics, everything. So we are looking for the new trend of data center, because a few years ago, there is a mantra that we have inside Scala: edge follow the fiber and cloud follow the edge. Okay, this is the standard framework. But now, in my point of view, data centers follow the power.
Yeah.
You know, this is happening in US. This is happening in Europe. Sometimes you have power, but you don't have a good environment to deliver data center, because there is a lot of points, community engagement, regulatory marks, a lot of points that you need to fix to use that power. So maybe you can move the data center to another location. So we have our team making this kind of research and putting together our market intelligence, our real estate, and our power team, energy team. We are able to understand what are the next steps with a good level of accuracy, raising the level of risk that we can take if we decide to move to another location. Giving an example, Argentina. Argentina is a big market, so we will be more than happy to deliver a data center there. But the politics sometimes is a problem. So the economical environment sometimes is a problem. But we are listening to what is happening in Argentina. And if the scenario changes, there is a very interesting energy matrix there. Very interesting. There is a good connectivity there. So why not? Depends on the movement. So we are listening to everybody, in order to understand what is the next step, especially where are the power, So
Yeah, I think you're right. The before was latency was important. Latency would trump everything else. Now it's power trumps everything else, right? So if there's
yeah,
power, people are going to want.
latency is important as well, but not for all the applications.
Correct.
If we talk about AI, maybe latency is not so important for training,
Yeah. Yeah, I do. And just going to the Argentina point, it gets to a point where it's such a large population and the infrastructure there is so underdeveloped that it gets to a point where people have to decide it is a little risky going to the market, but the opportunity is so large that, maybe it's time to go into that market. So I'm optimistic that people are going to go into Argentina, maybe later this year or sometime next year when things improve a little bit.
Me too.
So speaking of power, Querétaro, we all know Querétaro, what's going on with Querétaro is, the news are not great, especially with the political situation there and the president and whoever gets elected. They're not too they don't want to privatize the power company. And so it hasn't made it easy. Scala chose to go into Mexico, not in Querétaro, but you went into Tepoztlán. I'm not pronouncing it correctly, but let's just say it's outside of Mexico City. You built a facility there for a hyperscale customer, which, by the way, I was on the phone with that customer. I won't mention who it is, but we were talking last week, and they were very pleased that you guys were able to deliver very quickly with a modular solution there. So that's great that you're there. But what are your next? Are you planning to go into Querétaro? Are you planning to expand in that area outside of Mexico City? What are your plans for Mexico? I mean, Querétaro has a huge opportunity. There's a lot of capacity yet to be built, but there's no power.
Yeah. So talking about Mexico, let's talk first about Tepoztlán, close to Mexico City. I think there is an opportunity because in that region, there are some data centers, but not a new data centers. So with no design, and that not fits all the customer requirement. And there is a lot of concerns about the quality of services in that region. So our data center in that location is to serve this demand for good service and for new technical requirements. So this is a part of our strategy. And we started this data center solving a customer problem, as I mentioned before. So it's part of our DNA. And solving a customer problem, we figure out there is an opportunity to leverage their facility with other data center in the same campus, helping that location to develop in terms of data center, okay? So if the customer needs to be close to the users, if latency is a key point, Tepozotlan will be a very good alternative for that market, okay? Talking about Querétaro, you are right. So everybody knows about the concern about the power in Querétaro. But again, if you take a look about what is happening in US, where the data center workloads are moving where the power is, I think that we will be able to share great news in that region soon, very soon. There is we are late because when we decide to launch Mexico, all the competitors, all the hyperscales were there with projects, operational projects, a small part of operational projects, but a lot of buildings under construction. Okay, so we know that we were late. But sometimes it's a good point because we can watch everything that is happening in that region and reorganize our business plan in order to support the demand that there is a huge demand there. So now I think that we are in a good shape. Our real estate and power team have been working a lot to understand where could be our points to launch a data center there. And again, we are almost ready. We are in the final stage to become public, where we will deliver our data center in that region, serving capacity. And using all the things that I mentioned before, we are able to deliver fast because we have a lot of things under control. So, of course, we need to take care. We have responsibility with our customers. So we will not move forward without the certainty that we will be able to deliver and deliver on time. So we are handling it. But I believe that we will be able to share news about Querétaro, Scala in Querétaro very, very soon.
That's great news. That's because I think I've talked to a lot of people, and anybody that can deliver power in Querétaro today is in a very good position because, as you know, a lot of projects have stalled because of the power, and the solution is 1 or 2 years, 3 years out. So that's great news.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned AI and what's going on in the U.S., and I do agree. It's incredible. And, you and I spoke at ITW. I met with a friend of mine. She's an operations director at a hyperscaler site in Virginia area. And I was just blown away. She told me that just her campus where she works, I mean, and this hyperscaler is launching GPUs, doing a whole data center with GPUs and launching an AI solution. That whole campus where she works has close to 1 gigawatt of capacity. That's one campus, right? And you talk about all of Latin America today, it's just over 1 gigawatt of capacity. So it's what's happening in the US is it's like a tsunami that's coming to the region. So I think anybody that's prepared with power is going to benefit. That said, Scala just announced 2 weeks ago, I think, that you're building a new 560 megawatt substation, right? In Tamboré, that's your third substation. Is that how far out is that? When will that power be available? And I'm assuming that that's for future growth in Tamboré, or is this for current sites that you have today?
Both. And again, when we start this company, we contract some consultancies to make a research to us about the potential of Tamboré campus. At that time, 4 years ago, the answer that we received was, okay, considering the industry standards, Scala will be able to deliver 50 megawatts of capacity. 50, okay? Mm-hmm. And now you mentioned that our substation will be 10 times bigger than this. We are delivering buildings with 44 megawatts in this campus. So it's very, very interesting about how can we change the things according to the market needs. So answering your point, we have a substation. All the buildings that we have there are serving by other substations. Okay, we have 3 substations in that campus, and this new substation will serve our third phase of expansion, and we are focused on AI, new workloads, and I can tell you that we already have AI racks in our campus. We received this information yesterday that one of our customers delivered the first 15 racks of AI in that campus, and they are planning to deliver in the next month 100 new racks exclusive for AI. So it's happening, And I believe that we will be ready to serve this capacity. Of course, maybe it's not a fair comparison, the size of market in Latin America in comparison to US. But I believe that not only Scala, but the entire market are making some movements in order to have more capacity available in a shorter period of time. Fortunately, we were able to manage all the power strength in order to launch our substation. We start building our substation, and it will be ready by the end of this year. And we also have all the permits, all the project, and all the schedule to deliver not only the substation but the transmission lines serving our campus. So we will be in a very good shape to be ready to host the AI wave in our campus, not only in Tamboré. If a customer decides to move to Chile as well, we are developing 2 big campuses in Chile, in Santiago region, with more than 100. We have alternatives as well in other cities in São Paulo, in Campinas and Jundiaí. We have power under control. We have land under control. We have a lot of strategic partnerships that allow us to deliver fast. We have equipment already acquired. We have an inventory with some megawatts to deliver right now if the customer needs, Of course, we need to take under consideration some new specifications, especially related to cooling. And I believe that when you were in our campus, you had the opportunity to see TB9 and TB10, our new data centers that we will deliver soon. TB9 by the end of this year and TB10 in the first half of next year. All these data centers ready to serve liquid cooling. We have, with our engineering team, our Center of Excellence of Engineering, a lot of works with our customers to understand and to collaborate about the cooling systems that we will be able to deliver to them in our region. So we are in an advantage stage, When the customer decides to deliver AI with liquid cooling, we already have the power, we already have the land, we already have the equipment, and we already have the design. And I think that we will have all the important pieces in the puzzle to deliver exactly what the customer needs. It's difficult to be predictive about the size of this new demand. Sometimes customers talk about 40 kilowatts per rack, 70 kilowatts per rack, 200 kilowatts per rack. I think there is a lot of work that the customer needs to do. But I can tell you, it doesn't matter what is the amount of capacity, we are able and we will be ready to serve this demand, this new wave of demand. And we spoke a little bit about this 2 weeks ago in ITW. We are not looking only to Tamboré. Again, we are always looking for the next step. While we are building the current step, we are looking to the next step. And we have plans to work. We are doing this right now to work with the government in order to educate the government about what is a data center, what is the AI, how can both things change the scenario in a location, how can this technology can help the development of the country, you know. So for us, it's not only a deal for a data center market, it's much more than this. It's a country plan, you know. We really believe that through the data center, through the AI, through this new wave, we can help our region. I'm not talking about only about Brazil. We can help the development about our region, you know. So we have some examples of this in Europe, in any other locations around the world. And I really believe that Brazil, South America in general, can be the new hub because we have a good connectivity. Of course, we need to improve this, okay? But we have a good connectivity. We have some announcements from relevant companies, customers, about new cables arriving in Chile. We have many projects in cables arriving in Fortaleza, in Rio, in São Paulo, in the south of the region. We have green power. We have a lot of power here. A lot of power here. Of course, there is some concerns about the transmission. But again, learning about what is happening in US, maybe we can move the center of gravity from the current locations to another one where we can have enough power to support this new demand, especially for the workloads that there is no dependency about latency. Training, for instance. Okay, training is the small part of the AI, okay. But this small part probably will double the size of the data center markets in our region, you know, so it's very, very relevant. And I really believe that our region can be a hotspot for AI in a short period of time.
No, I agree. And I think what a lot of people outside of the region don't realize is the green power that's available in Latin America, right? The renewables. Brazil's 85, 90% renewables. Other countries are 80, 90% renewables. And it's not just hydro, right? Brazil, obviously, as we talked in ITW, there's a lot of solar coming up, a lot of wind power coming up, generation. So that's a good story to tell, especially for these AI companies. Yeah. So
Yeah, and I believe, Steve, that we can rate power rates in comparison to US. So if we have resources available, if we have a fair cost to develop a data center, if we have land, if we have connectivity, why not? We are talking about relevant markets. Brazil, Chile, Mexico are relevant. Of course, it's different in comparison to US, but it's not they will be not an early adopter to launch AI regions in these countries, you know. So let's see. We are very excited with this possibility, and I can tell you we are working very hard to be prepared to get all this demand when the demand came.
So we're running out of time, but I do have one last question I want to ask you, and something that Scala does very well, and that's like we briefly touched on it when you talked about customers and delivering services on a very fast-paced schedule. And I know you work a lot with the modular solution. A normal data center provider, I would say a normal timeline from buying land, building, and putting that facility up online is about 2 years. I think Scala is probably shorter, probably 8 to 10 months. I don't know, let's say 8 months to a year, using your modular solution that you mentioned. Can you just briefly touch on that? And because what I used to think modular was, you could do 10 racks, 20 racks, very small solution. But what Scala has done with modular, I believe you're up, in the megawatt range of delivering solutions for your customers. Can you briefly touch on your modular solution for your customers?
Sure, but it's important to clarify, Steve, that we are able to deliver fast, not only the modular. the TB8, a building that we deliver to the customer right now, from the foundation to the go live, we took 1 year.
Okay.
And this is a traditional. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the main point is we are industrializing. Everything is possible. So it doesn't matter if I'm using blocks or precasts for the customer, but for us, it's very important to take advantage about the more fast way to deliver, you know? And I'm talking about the traditional one, okay? Talking about the modular, when we started this new construction methodology, we were able to deliver plots of 600 kilowatts, but now we are able to deliver blocks of 3 megawatts, okay? So some campuses that we are launching are fully based on modular solution. In Chile, in Fortaleza will be. So we are targeting again not only time to market, but we are targeting also the best balance between the investments and the revenue. You know, with less risk for our investors. So we are able to do everything. We are not working only in the construction. Again, I mentioned Scala has more than 40 megawatts in generators in our inventory. So if the customer wants 20 megawatts everywhere in Latin America, we are able to deliver. Okay, but how can you ensure that this generator will serve that customer needs? I can assure you, because we are continuously working with the engineering from the customers. So we know what are the equipments that they are able to use in any location. They have global standards, you know. So we have generators, we have chiller, we have UPS. So the most critical equipment in terms of lead time we have under control. So we have very strategic partnerships with the market, with vendors, strategic vendors. We have land under control. So when the customer decides to move, it's just a matter to understand what is the ramp, what is the amount of capacity, and decide if we will launch in a modular way or in a traditional way, but both quickly. You know?
Yeah. This one customer that I spoke to, that's a customer of yours, said that you were able to deliver a very quick solution, modular, and then at their expansion will be traditional. But you know, it worked out great.
Again, this kind of flexibility allows the customer to test some new regions. Okay, let me test El Salvador. Let's put a model with 1 megawatt there. Okay, I will deliver the model pretty quickly. 9 months, they will be able to be live. This market is very, very, very interesting. Let's invest more. We can grow in the modular solution, the modular way again, or we can grow in the traditional. Doesn't matter to Scala. It's just a matter about when they need the capacity and when they need to pay. It's a balance between technical aspects and a spreadsheet aspects. You know?
Yeah. Well, great, Cleber. This has been very great information. As you know, I've learned a lot, and hopefully our viewers will learn a lot about Scala and your future plans. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And good luck with the future endeavors. I mean, hopefully we'll keep hearing about new facilities and new announcements for Scala Data Centers.
Yeah. So thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about our plans, about our view. So we are totally available to talk anytime. So just let us know, okay? We are very happy to be part of this kind of discussion.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Cleber.
Thank you.